Alright, so today's lesson is going to be on transformations, and we're going to focus on reflections and dilations. So open in your books to page 63. So reflection is flipping a geometric figure over a specified axis. So in these problems, you have to really pay attention if it says to flip over the x or the y axis. So to do reflections, you have a few different options. So option 1, so an x-axis reflection, you change the sign of y. So if you look at this figure down here, if we reflected that over the x-axis, it's going to go from quadrant 3 up to quadrant 2. So all we'd have to do is adjust the signs of the y values. A y-axis reflection, you change the sign of the x. We'd go from quadrant 3 to quadrant 4. Another option is count boxes. So for instance, down here, A is 1 unit away from the x-axis. If we reflected across the x-axis, we'd be 1 unit away in quadrant 2, or 1 unit away in quadrant 4. Let's get the ordered pairs for A, B, C, and D. Go ahead and write those down here where it says original. Okay, so check and see that your ordered pairs match up. So it says to reflect across the x-axis. So again, we take this quadrilateral, this four-sided figure here in quadrant 3, and we're going to reflect to go up here to quadrant 2. So in a reflection, this figure is not going to rotate or change size at all. We just do a mirror image. So for the x-axis reflection, let's change the signs of y. Quick review. Quadrant 1, remember, positive x's, positive y's. Quadrant 2, negative, positive. 3, negative, negative. And 4, positive, negative. Okay, so if we're going to quadrant 2, we're going to have negative x values and positive y values. Okay, so I adjusted all of my signs, negative x values, positive y. Now let's plot those here in quadrant 2. Okay, so now we plotted those figures. We have to be sure that we label those. So A was at -1, so A prime, and we show a prime by putting this apostrophe, is at -1, 1. B prime will be at -2, positive 3. C prime will be at -1, positive 5. And D prime is -3, positive 3. Let's go ahead and try the y-axis reflection. So that's going to go from quadrant 3 over to quadrant 4. So this time we'll have positive x values and negative y's. Okay, let's go ahead and plot these points. So 1, -1, that's going to be A prime prime. So we'll use 2 apostrophes this time. B is going to be at 2, -3. So B prime prime. C is at 1, -5. And finally, D will be at 3, -3. Connect your dots. And now we've reflected across the y-axis. So again, I mentioned you could also count your boxes. So look, if we reflect across the y, A was 1 unit away from the y-axis, so therefore it'd be 1 unit away over here on this side. B was 2 units away, so 2 units away over here. So those are 2 different options for you. Okay, turn to page 64. So this time we're going to take this image here in quadrant 1, and we're going to take that across the x-axis. So we're going to go from quadrant 1 down to quadrant 4. Over here in this example, we reflect across the y from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2. Start by getting your ordered pairs. Why don't you go ahead and try these 2 examples and then check your work with me. Okay, check and make sure that your ordered pairs match up. So A is 3, 5, B 8, 5, C 4, 2, and D is 7, 2. Then I reflected across the X and adjusted my Y values. Go ahead and plot that figure if you haven't already done so. Again, be sure that you label these with the apostrophes. That represents you made a copy. That's your prime. Alright, then it says down here, count how many units A is from the x-axis. A's 5 units away. A prime is also 5 units away. B's 5, B prime is 5. C is 2 units, C prime is 2 units. D and D prime are also 2. Okay, now over here. So because I'm reflecting across the Y, I go from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2. Negative X values, positive Y's. So again, the ordered pairs stay the same, we just have to adjust the sign. Okay, so check and make sure that yours matches up. So A prime is negative 3, 5, B prime is negative 8, 5, C prime is negative 4, 2, then D prime is negative 7, 2. How many units from the y-axis? A is 3, A prime is also 3, B is 8, B prime is also 8, C is 4, C prime is also 4, and finally D and D prime are 7 units away. Now let's look at dilations. So turn to page 70 in your yellow book. So those of you that have been to the eye doctor before, you know if you get your eyes dilated, that changes the size of your pupil. So dilation is changing the size of a geometric figure. If the scale factor that you multiply by is greater than 1, that enlarges the shape. Less than 1, a fraction. What if it was just 1? It would stay the same. Alright, so down here, negative 4, 6 times the scale factor of 1/2 becomes, negative 2, 3. Just take half of those numbers or divide them by 2. So it's like negative 4 over 1 times 1/2, which would end up giving you negative 2. 2 negative 1 times the scale factor 2 becomes 4, because 2 times 2 is 4, negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. So all you have to do is multiply the ordered pair by the scale factor. So down here, go ahead and get the coordinates of RS to UV. Okay, so we have R at negative 2, 1, S is negative 3, 0, T is negative 3, 2, U is negative 1, 2, and V is negative 1, 0. Dilate by a scale factor of 2. Take these x's and y's and multiply by 2. So negative 2 times 2 for the new would give you negative 4. 1 times 2 will give you 2. Because the scale factor is bigger than 1, it's going to enlarge the shape. Go ahead and get S prime, T prime, U prime, and V prime. It's a new ordered pair. Just take x and y and multiply by 2. Okay, let's go ahead and plot this new shape. So R prime is going to be at negative 4, 2. S prime is at negative 6, 0. T prime is negative 6, 4. U prime is negative 2, 4. And V prime is negative 2, 0. Be sure you put that prime, the apostrophe. So there we go. We've dilated that by a scale factor of 2. look at page 71. Why don't you go ahead and try to dilate these two images and then check your work with me when you're finished. Okay, so go ahead and check yourself with this first one. Multiply by a scale factor of 2. It's going to enlarge the shape. So 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2. Then I came up here and did the same for B, C, and D and plotted those figures. Again, do not forget the prime. So over here we're multiplying by a scale factor of 1/2. You could also change that to a decimal and just multiply by 0.5. So half of negative 10 would be negative 5. 5. Half of negative 4 is negative 2, 5. Negative 5, 1. And negative 2, 1. So multiplying by a fraction is going to cause that image to get smaller. Okay, so check and make sure that your graph matches up. So big things from the lesson. For reflections, you just do a flip of the image across the x or y axis. Keep your ordered pairs the same, but adjust the x or the y, depending on which axis you reflect over. For dilations, just multiply by the scale factor.